Welcome to our Wheel and Anchor webinar, our LiveAway Tuscany, scheduled to take place in April of next year, and a sneak peek. We're also going to be running this program in October of next year as well. So keep that in the back of your minds. Today we're focused on April, but the program that we run in the spring will probably be more or less the same in the fall. So without further ado, we do have a lot of members today, and so who have not participated in one of our webinars this morning. And so I want to take a moment to give you a brief overview about what Wheel and Anchor is all about. And so bear with me if you've heard this a dozen times before, because you're a regular in our webinars, then you can grab a quick cup of coffee. We started Wheel and Anchor about, it's almost 4 years ago. I have been doing the travel business for the better part of 30 years. I've brought Canadians to all corners of the world. And we decided a few years back, I really wanted to work more closely with travelers like you. And because my experience was that whenever we bring people together who have the same sort of passion, the same desire to have a lot of fun along the way and travel with like-minded people. And so we created this community called Wheel and Anchor. And the vision, if you will, is to bring people together who have this sort of shared desire for good times, but also to learn something, to immerse themselves in these wonderful countries and destinations that we visit all over the world. My personal goal for every single one of our members is that you become well-traveled and well-connected. And so what that means is that when we say well-traveled, it's, for a lot of people, it's just about checking places off of a bucket list. But I really believe that the more time you spend in a place, the better that you can get to know it, get to know the people, get to know the culture, the traditions, the food, the wine, and all the rest of it. And so that's for us what well-traveled means at Wheel and Anchor. And I really hope for every one of our members that, we can take this time of our life to really experience all the amazing things that are out there. And in the process of doing that, you become connected naturally to the other people you're traveling with, as well as to people that you meet along the way. In this case, one of the people that I met along the way is Francesco, and I'm going to introduce him right now, actually. So our team today, myself, my name is Gordon Dreger. If we have not met before, I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I'm kind of the guy that makes it all happen. My passion is travel. I love traveling with our members all over the world and showing people new places. That, for me, is what makes me get out of bed in the morning. I'm joined by Joel Curry and Paula Zarnick. Many of you will have spoken to Paula on the phone. She is the person who primarily deals with our members day in and day out. She does an amazing job at that. Our special guest today, Mr. Francesco Simonetti, who is from Cortona, from this beautiful little town that we're going to be visiting in Italy. Francesco, you just came back from Italy to Thailand. Yes. Here a matter of a few days ago.
2 weeks ago. Yes. Very excited to be back in Thailand, but already missing Tuscany.
No doubt. Francesco and I were talking numerous times while he was in Tuscany as we were pulling this program together. He was telling me all about the great food and the wine and all the rest of it. And then when he arrived back here in Thailand, I said to him, I said, Francesco, it looks like you put 3 or 4 kilos on since you...
maybe more than that.
Anyway, so Francesco is our host in Cortona. In fact, we're going to be, one of the villas that we've chosen is actually his family home where he grew up. Yes. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. So the plan for today's webinar is to take you as members of Wheel and Anchor who are interested in spending a whole month in Tuscany on a little bit of a tour. For today's webinar, I'll be your host, but actually for the program as well, I'll be joining for the first 3 weeks of the program to show you around Tuscany. I love to go to Tuscany. I've been many times, and I was there last time 2 years ago in January to some of the very same places that we're going. And we're gonna show you a little bit about what that's all about today. First of all, what is a LiveAway program? So this is actually the 4th in a series of LiveAway programs that we have created. And interestingly, and I don't know whether this has something to do with the COVID pandemic, but there's a lot of interest in this idea of staying places for a longer period of time. And that exactly is the concept behind A Live Away, is that we stay in one area, in one country or one region for usually around a month. And so our first Live Away is to Thailand next January. We're going to be staying a month on the island just across from me in Koh Samui. Then we're going to to Madeira for a month, and then Cyprus, and then in April of next year here for a month. So the basic concept is that we stay in one place for a whole month. Now in Tuscany, we're going to be splitting that into two segments. The first segment is in Florence. The second segment, of course, in Cortona, in the southeastern part of the country. The second aspect of A Live Away is this notion of slow travel. If you stay in a place for long enough, it means that you're not running off a clock all the time. Now, of course, we're going to have our excursions that leave at scheduled times, but half of the time roughly that you're there is no set agenda. So it enables you to just like literally spend the day reading a book at a cafe, or having a glass of wine, or hiking through the hills. You can sort of set the pace at your own desire. And that leads me into the next point, which is flexibility. The way we've designed this type of program allows you to choose the activities, the excursions that you want to participate in. So with most ordinary tour programs, you have a set agenda. Of course, you cannot do it, but you've paid for it one way or the other. And our approach here at Wheel and Anchor is that we give you an activity credit. So included in the trip price, there is an allowance, and I'll get to what that is here in Tuscany in a minute, for you to book the excursions. And therefore it covers, on average, depending on the trip, between 2/3 and 3/4 of all of the possible options. So therefore you can choose what you want to do and leave what you don't want to do behind. If you want to do everything, it's maybe a few bucks less. If you don't want to do it all, we'll actually give you the difference back. And so that's a big innovative approach that we've taken in our Liveaways. The fourth point is community spirit. I'm all about really getting to know the people in the local community that we're visiting. So our idea behind Liveaways is our community goes to your community, and we want to have an opportunity to meet people and understand the way of life and the way of thinking. And that's really a big part of travel, the kind of travel that we do. And finally, live like a local. So we try to stay in the kind of accommodations and eat at the restaurants, and go and visit the shops and the places that locals would do, which differs again from other types of travel where you often stay in sort of tour group hotels and you're surrounded by other tourists. You can't avoid tourists in Florence. It has to be one of the most visited cities in Europe, but at the same time, we're staying at these wonderful little residences, and I'll introduce those to you in just a second. So that's the idea behind our Live Away concept, and so far it seems to be pretty popular among our members. Good, let's go on. Let's talk now specifically about Tuscany, and I want to give you a taste of what this program is all about. First of all, why Tuscany? Well, I think for most of you, it probably doesn't need much introduction. I mean, you've joined this webinar because you already heard something about Tuscany. You've certainly can imagine for yourself these rolling hills like you see in the picture, these ranges of mountains, not steep mountains like the Alps, but rather rounded off mountains with forests and lakes all interspersed with them. I mean, the countryside is like picturesque to no end. And of course, the history that dates back to the Bronze Age. Francesco, why do you think people come and visit Tuscany? What do you think makes it special for visitors?
Well, Tuscany have many nice things to see. I can say the first thing what I like from Tuscany is the nature, and then the water. The local people used to use the product from them home to cook, so that's very special.
Exactly. I think that's part of it. Francesco, you're a bit close to the camera, so we can only see from the nose.
Sorry.
There you go.
I cannot see myself, so I'm trying to adjust.
No worries. Yeah, I think the food is really an important aspect of it, because as you say, Tuscany is full of these agriturismo, right? Which is where
Yes,
people produce their own products. And is that how it works?
exactly. Yes,
They produce their own products and then they're allowed to sell them directly to the public. So there's no
ex-
middleman in between there. There's
exactly.
no, yeah, yeah.
And for me, that's something that is very special. And in Tuscany, it's very many people do this.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
one of the first thing.
It's the way of life for so many people in Tuscany, and that's what makes it so interesting, because it's not just done for the tourists. In fact, it's done for the locals, and
Yes.
so exploring all these kinds of places is a really a really exciting adventure. Let's look at the map for a second. Of course, for those of you who aren't aware, Tuscany, of course, is in the middle part of Italy. So a bit further south, you'll find Rome, and further north, of course, you'll find Milan, which is up in the northern part of Italy, and Venice. And so Tuscany sits right here in the middle, and it's a pretty big chunk of real estate. And of course, we mostly think about it in terms of, Florence and these hilltop towns like Cortona, like Montepulciano, and so on. But there's also a beautiful coastline there. And one of the side trips that we'll do is to Monte Agrentario. I always pronounce it wrong. So we get a bit of thank you. A bit of a sampling, not just of the Tuscany that we expect to see, but also some of these other unique parts, like the coastal aspect of the region. Looking at the map, our program will begin with 2 weeks in Florence. So you can fly via European gateways directly into Florence. Of course, for those of you who don't like to make connecting flights, you can also fly from Toronto, at least, nonstop to Rome, and take the high speed, the so-called Frecciarossa, which goes from Rome directly up to Florence at like a bullet train. We'll spend the first 2 weeks in Florence. From there, we have all kinds of side trips planned over to Cinque Terre, which for many of you needs no introduction, but I'll talk about it in a second, to Bologna. But most importantly, in Florence, you can spend 2 weeks there, and I swear to God, not get bored. There are so many things to see and do in this city. It is remarkable. And most importantly, just hanging around in some of these little galleries and these shops. There's so much fascinating stuff to see in Florence. Nevertheless, after 2 weeks in Florence, we're going to head down to Francesco's hometown, to Cortona, which is, as I mentioned, in the southeastern part of Tuscany. And from here, we're going to explore not only the town, but a lot of the other little hilltop towns and villages and rolling hills that are around there. So we'll get over to Montepulciano, we'll get to the bigger town of Siena, which some of you will have heard of, Monte Argentario, on the coast, like I mentioned, and numerous other places. So let's take a little bit more of a deep dive to what we can expect along the way. And I'm going to let Francesco sit back and relax for a minute while I talk about Florence, because he's not the expert on Florence. But so I'll call myself the expert on Florence. Undoubtedly one of my favorite cities in Europe. As I say, I was there just in January 2 years ago, when we were already thinking about this kind of a trip. Florence is, as I say, it is one of the most visited and one of the most beautiful cities in Italy. Why? Well, there are countless museums and galleries and shops and restaurants, all packed in a relatively tight city center, which is free of vehicular traffic. So you pretty much get around on foot in the central part of Florence. We have a couple of different accommodations picked out. And so again, this is one of the things that differentiates this program is that we use apartment style hotels. In actual fact, in Florence, and Joel, you can go to the next slide, the accommodations are residences. So we have 3 different residences, which are all in relatively close proximity to the main sites of Florence. So the Duomo, which is the famous cathedral that looms over the central part of the city. We're 10 minutes from the railway station. We're close to the Uffizi Gallery and the Galleria dell'Accademia, where some of these famous Italian works of art are kept. The accommodations themselves, as you see in the pictures, we have studios, which are a little bit more modern in flair. We have 1-bedroom apartments. We have 2-bedroom apartments. All of them are equipped with a kitchen. Obviously, they've got comfortable bedrooms with private bathrooms. Some of them, like you see here in the picture, have some of the ancient, or I should say ancient, but this sort of old style frescoes on the ceiling. So you get the combination between this avant-garde Italian design. Sometimes the places are a little bit more traditional, a little bit more like with antiquities in them, and sometimes it's a little bit more modern design. But the key thing is they're in a great location in the middle of town. Everything that you want to see in Florence is pretty much reachable on foot. Nevertheless, we give you little bus tokens as well in case you want to go outside of the immediate city center. So on this map that you see here, and you can go and Google it yourself, basically everything that's in yellow is all the historical central part of Rome. Our residences are A, B, and C. They're all in the same place. As I say, within about a 5 to 7 minute walk of Duomo, which is the cathedral, and that's the central part of Florence. So what are we going to do while we're in Florence? And again, keep in mind that our programs are, you can choose whatever it is that you want to do. In our Florence program, included in the price is a so-called activity credit of $750. So that's $750. You can go and do our cooking experiences. You can go and get a guided tour of the Uffizi to get a in-depth explanation about the Italian masters. Anyway, let me go through them in a more orderly fashion in terms of the things that you want to see. But as you see here from this picture, you see the famous Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge, which is lined with shops and so on. And it's one of the oldest parts of the city. And just ambling around, walking along the riverbank, and popping into these shops that sell, stamps and, old artifacts, but also new stuff. And the art that you can find in there. Like, as I say, like you could spend literally 2 weeks just wandering around the streets of Florence. Some of the tours that we'll be doing, that we'll be offering, as I say, that you could use your activity credit for example, an artisan tour where we'll go and visit some of the craftsmen making leather goods. Obviously, Italy, Florence in particular, is well known for its leather trade. They also make mosaic paintings. There's pottery and clay. So in the artisan tour, we'll get a sense of the different things that are actually made in and around Florence. We'll visit little towns outside of Florence, like Fiesole, which is just outside of town. And from here, you get a view of the valley that Florence sits in. And I personally, I love Florence, but it's these little towns that have so much charm and character, and where you also tend to get away from the tourists and Florence, even though that we're going in sort of the shoulder season, which I think is the optimal time to go. But even so, when you want to go and visit the cathedral, you pretty much have to wait in line anytime. I see lots of questions coming in, which is great. I will get to them at the end in the Q&A session. I just like to keep on a roll, so bear with me for a minute. We're going to go and see the Boboli and Bardini gardens, which were started by the Medici family. The Medici, you'll see this name pop up all over. These guys were credited with sort of founding money, like it or not, and they are attributed to many of these spectacular buildings and other installations like the Boboli Gardens, which are in Florence and truly remarkable to visit. Of course, as I said, Tuscany is all about food, and the Florentine culinary tour allows us to go around and taste some of the specialties that you might not otherwise order off the menu, because I know that a lot of travelers are sometimes a bit hesitant, particularly if they can't understand what the name of the dish is. So they're less likely to try it. But this way, we go and we taste these different dishes. And so the next time, if you really, really love it, you can go and order it in one of the restaurants around town. We'll go for a wonderful walk through the so-called hills of Florence, which again, the picture sort of says it all, rolling hills, beautiful villas that are up in the hillside around the city. It's a wonderful way to experience Florence. We'll also learn how to make pizza. And of course, a Napoli pizza class is almost a bit of a, how shall I say, an oxymoron, because Napoli is, of course, Naples. And Naples likes to take credit for pizza, but they certainly do a great job in Florence as well. And what better way to learn how to make real Italian pizza than when you're in the middle of Italy? So you can also take a tour, for example, with our guide who is, really an expert in the Italian masters of the Uffizi Gallery. But some people will say, well, I can do that on my own because I don't like to sort of follow a tour guide around. They've also got like those audio sets and so on. And this is the beauty of this type of a trip is that you're not obliged to go on our organized trip. So as long as we get enough people to sign up, I'm not really worried about that. You can either take the guided trip where you'll be really explained all of the different Italian masters and what the significance of all of these pieces that were created, or you can just book a ticket on your own. The only thing I'll say about places like Uffizi and Galleria dell'Accademia, some of the most famous museums in Florence, if not the whole world, is that you have to book your ticket in advance if you don't want to go on our trip. It's not a big deal. You can book it online, but it's in order to keep the volume of people under control, there are set times that you book to be able to enter these different galleries and museums. We're going to make some longer side trips. One of the longest ones is to the coast just north of Tuscany, which is Cinque Terre. And if you haven't heard of Cinque Terre, you've probably seen a picture like this. 5 different villages that are on cliffs, literally stuck to the steep coastline of Italy. It's one of the most favorite tours that anybody that visits Italy could go on. And so we'll spend the whole day. We have to leave sort of first thing in the morning, heading off to La Spezia. And from there, we go by boat and train, depending on the weather conditions. And we visit at least 3 or 4, depending on weather, of the villages in Cinque Terre. So it's a fantastic trip. We can also visit Bologna. And again, because we're there for 2 weeks, a lot of people don't make a stop in a town like Bologna because they're really not sure what's there. It's a beautiful city, but the interesting thing about Bologna is it's like the foodie capital of Italy. So it's not Florence, it's not Rome, but Bologna, wow, they have incredible cuisine, and we'll get a taste of that. We'll have a half-day tour, and you'll have an opportunity for the rest of the day to enjoy the city on your own. And another bonus with these types of trips, we're going to zip up to Bologna by high-speed rail. So you get there in like 45 minutes. Then you can choose to come back at whatever time suits you. So again, one of the beauties of this style of travel is that you have the flexibility and you're not running to catch that bus with 40 other people. That's not how we work. So Francesco, it's your turn now. We're gonna talk about Cortona and your town, and we want to hear all about this
Cortona,
where you just came back from. First of all, so Cortona, as I mentioned before, in the southeastern part of Tuscany,
yes.
and well, tell us a little bit about the town first of all before we get into the accommodation.
Okay, so yeah, Cortona is a very small village situated on top of this small mountain. It's a very cute village with very friendly people, and a lot of food around, and many places to visit, many church, a lot of history, and it was one of the top Etruscan city in the Tuscany.
And we'll talk about that. One of our tours is about Etruscan history, because the Etruscan era goes back to like 8 centuries before Christ. So it's part of the
before Roman.
Before the Roman Empire even. So it's, and this is again part of the reason that people love to visit Tuscany, because you have this juxtaposition between modern day life here in the 21st century, but it goes back so far, and you can see the evolution of all of that, not just in the bigger cities, but also in these smaller places like Cortona. Yes. In Cortona, Francesco, we have a few different villas picked out for our members to stay in. Of course, the first one on the list is your family home.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so this is the kitchen where I used to make food with my grandma when I was a child. Yes, and this is my family room.
And so the house is it's an old stone house, and I think you were telling me it's quite old.
It's very old. Yes, it's from my family from many generations, and recently we just renovate everything, but we keep all the old style. So we remake all the floor with this cotto stone, and yeah, we try to keep the old style house of
And
Tuscany.
again, this is the beauty that you can expect, and we've chosen most of the villas. And generally, when you visit Tuscany, you stay in old style buildings. They could be 200, 300, 400 years old. In fact, one of them that we have is from the 15th century, or at least parts of the building are from the 15th century. And so this is the charm of Italy, because and you also get a sense of why Italian design is so cherished around the world, because you can see the origin of it in these buildings, and you know, some of them have these, you know, wooden beams in the roof, and you know, ceramic tile, but more like clay tile floors. There's everything oozes with charm, and even the more modern things like a bathroom like this, it's a style and a design that you don't find, or at least it's not as commonly found at home, and that's part of the beauty of staying in a villa rather than a hotel. I think all of the villas, including yours, have a swimming pool, or you've got a couple of swimming pools at your place. Is that right?
Oh yes, yes, we got two. One at the bottom garden, and one more at the top garden. They are a little bit smaller than what we see now here in the picture, but both of the swimming pool have a beautiful view on all the Val di Chiana Valley.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about your villa, Francesco, is that from the terrace and from the different floors, I think you said you have the best view in the whole town.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the, I think our house is the second house higher on the hill.
There you go. So you're right up at the
yeah.
top of the hill. And although this next picture here is actually the fortress of Cortona, but it's the same kind of view that you get right from your house, right?
Same view. The fortress is just on top of our house. Our house is one of these roof what you see down here. One of the first roof.
And so so when you go around Tuscany and you look at a picture like this is what hilltop towns in Tuscany are all about, right? They were built obviously to defend themselves during the Roman Empire and even earlier, because of course they can see the enemy coming from a long way away. And so all these little towns are built on the top of and how old is Cortona exactly? Or roughly?
That's
older than you.
That's a few century before Christ.
Right. Yeah. So there you go.
That's I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but it is very old, very old.
I suspect that we'll find out on our trip how old Cortona is. But the point is, it's at least a couple of thousand years old.
I'm sure that the fortress, what we see the view before, is medieval. So I think it's medieval age.
Yeah, medieval. So from the medieval era. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So when we're in Cortona, the villas that we have are situated sort of around town. In the case of yours, Francesco, about how far is it from the center of the town?
It's around 10-15 minute walk.
But because it's a hilltop town, we have to, in your case, we walk down to town. Is that right?
Yes. So it's quite easy to walk down to the city. A little bit harder to walk up, but it's not so far.
But particularly if you've had a big Tuscan meal and a few glasses of wine.
Oh yeah, then you will need a help.
Yeah, and we'll definitely make sure that help is available. Some of the meals that we enjoy while we're in Cortona will be right in Francesco's own dining room, prepared by Francesco himself. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, especially with the product what we produce, me and my father. So we make cheese, we make olive oil, we make many different kind of salumi, and we also go to the forest to pick up mushroom and to hunt.
And you hunt wild boar in the forest?
Yes, wild boar, deer, and we process all the meat from the forest until the plate. Yeah.
So this is what Italy is all about, particularly Tuscany, is the whole farm to table. It's a new concept in North America, but in Tuscany, they've been doing it forever. From
generation to generation. Yes.
That's part of why you became such a passionate chef.
Thank you.
So as I say, we'll be spending time in Cortona. You'll have time to enjoy the town itself and wander around, but there's so many great things to see. Montepulciano, in fact, was probably the last
Beautiful.
place I visited in Tuscany. What a great city. Most of our members will recognize it because it's the home of red wine, or one of the homes of red wine.
Yes, yes. I will say it's one of the best place for the red wine. And what I really like about Montepulciano is that you walk through the little road, and then you find these small doors, and you walk through, and then you go underground, and you have this cantina under the ground, and it's where the family of Montepulciano used to make and still make the wine.
They make
So
it in these underground
yes,
caves.
so they produce the grape on the around Montepulciano. Then they bring the grape and they process the wine under the ground of Montepulciano.
Oh, wow. So actually in the town center. Wow.
Yes, that's beautiful. Each time I go to Montepulciano, I go to visit some of this cantina, and the owners are very friendly, and it's very, very nice to see.
And I mean, my memory of it, again, being another hilltop town, is that you walk through this town and all of a sudden you look between the buildings and you see way out over the landscape,
Yes.
and it just takes your breath away. It's truly amazing. We're going to visit as well a few other places like Lignano, which is you were explaining to me, it's a park where you basically have the domesticated, or not domesticated, the wild animals from Tuscany.
Yes. Yes, so Lignano Municipal Park, it is, sorry, I lost you for a second. So
No problem.
Lignano Municipal Park is a place, not really touristic place. It's more where Cortona people like to go to spend the evening. And you have a wild animal that they are domesticated. So if you are lucky, you can see wild boar or wild deer walking around the tables. And the park, how to say, yes, so there is also a very big barbecue that we can use to cook our meat or vegetable, and where we will make where I will cook for everybody a very beautiful dinner.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, that's going to be terrific. We of course can't visit Tuscany without visiting a few wineries. This is the one that you suggested to me, San Luciano.
Yeah.
And this is a family winery, right?
Yes, family winery. They come from Lazio, and they keep to make the wine from how they were making from generation, with the style of Lazio, but in Tuscany, with the Tuscany ground.
And so Lazio is another province of Italy, and
Yes.
they have taken their winemaking techniques to Tuscan style wines, which is like Sangiovese, I think, is one of the grapes quite prevalent in these so-called super Tuscan wines.
Exactly. Yes.
And we'll have a chance to taste so many different wines. So if you're I mean, of course, you're welcome if you're not a wine drinker, but definitely we'll just serve you grape juice, right? Unfermented wine, not a problem. But a big part of this tour is definitely getting to understand more what is behind this incredible wine culture that Italy is so well known for. Talking a little bit about, well, first of all, we're also going to go to do a little bit of trekking. And I said to Francesco, I know some of our members, definitely like to walk in the countryside through the hills. And so Teverina is a mountain range not far from Cortona, yeah?
Yes. So it's a very beautiful, how to say, this forest of around Cortona.
Mm-hmm.
So we will walk through this forest, and we will find some church that is not that they don't use anymore. but they are there from long time ago. So we will see some history, not very old, maybe 200 or 300 years old, and it's very nice trekking to do.
Exactly, and then,
Nice
of course.
view around. If we are lucky, we will find also some mushroom. Let's see with the weather how is it.
Exactly, and that's an adventure in and of itself, is going with somebody that understands mushroom picking and which ones that you can pick that won't poison you. And I think, Francesco, you know how to do that very well.
I know quite well. Yes, I've been picking mushroom since I was very young with my father.
And you were telling me as well that we have a special meal planned in Teverina. I think you said
yes,
it was
the best of the best in Teverina we're gonna have. So in Teverina, there is this two friends of me that they are two chefs, and they really like to take each ingredient from them garden or from the farmers around the house, and each day they make a different menu at them restaurant. It is very small place, and they don't have a menu, but they're gonna choose for the customer what they're gonna eat at the day. So it's gonna be set menu that is gonna be for the day, and each time they make something amazing that you cannot find in any restaurant, in any menu. Is the food what you find at home, let's say, like a really home food.
home cooked food, yeah, next level home cooked food.
Yes.
We talked about Etruscan history. Obviously, this is another trip for those who are really interested in this 2,000 plus year old history that is centered around this part of central Italy. And there's some interesting. I think you said one of the places that we'll visit is a monastery.
So first we're gonna go to the Etruscan tomb. Yes, tomb with the tourist guide that will tell us all the history about Etruscan and how was Cortona one of the first city of the Etruscan history. Then after that, we're gonna have a nice hike on the top of Cortona and behind Cortona, where we have this very beautiful monastery, Franciscan monastery. That is very beautiful. It have a nice river going through the monastery. It's all made by stone, and I used to go there once a week with my father, walking from our home to just have picnic.
Perfect. So we'll have to plan to do a picnic as well, and take some of those homemade salamis and so on from your house.
Absolutely, yes.
It makes sense as well while we're in Cortona to visit Siena, because it's not too far of a drive away. It's about what, an hour,
an hour, yes, a bit less than an hour, around around an hour. Yes.
Just an hour. And so Siena, next to Florence, or maybe even more than Florence, is really one of the most amazing. It's really more of a city, but the whole city again is on the hilltop, and you can see in the picture the Renaissance style Duomo di Siena, the Cathedral of Siena, and so Siena as a city is quite famous. We'll have again part of the day to enjoy it with a guide to understand what it's all about, but perhaps more so than any other place, it's a city for just ambling around and shopping. I know the ladies like that.
Yes, a lot of antique around.
And
buy,
yeah.
Yes, and food, and it's just nice to walk around and look at the city. I very like Siena.
Yeah, I think it's a nice day getaway, and I know my own experience in the past has been when I've done it on other trips before, is it's usually a stop on the way somewhere else and you don't get enough time. But in this case, we're going to spend the whole day there, so you'll really have a chance to get the feeling of what Siena is all about. Lucignano.
Lucignano. So Lucignano is a very small village. It's very cute. It's the size a bit smaller than Cortona, so really small. And all around Lucignano, there is a winery, vineyard and olive trees. So again, here they grow the olive and the wine and the grape around, and then they make the wine inside the city.
So these kind of towns are super Instagram worthy, right? For those who like to, because you have the town and you have the vineyards outside, and
Yes.
there's no doubt that you're in Italy when you visit little towns like this.
Yes.
So
and very cute, very place.
And finally, one more thing, and of course we have more excursions than the ones that we're showing you today. We just wanted to give you a taste of the ones that we have in the program. And the last one I wanted to point out here was Monte Argentario. And Francesco, you were saying that you used to go here to the coast to spend your summertime.
Yes, let's say I grew up here as I grew up in Cortona. So each summer, when from June to September, I was spending here my holiday. And here is where I learned fishing and where I learned swimming and where I learned how to cook the fish. So it is one of the best sea and clear water what I know in Italy. And yes, I think for who come from outside of Italy, it's nice to see coastline of Tuscany.
Exactly, because a lot of people don't head to the coastline, and that's why I thought it was a good idea for us to include. And you can see that even here, a lot of people visit, Cinque Terre, like we mentioned, or the Amalfi Coast, but there's lots of beautiful coastline in Italy.
Yes, and I think this Monte Argentario, they will be the only tourists to be here, because this is a real local place where no tourists arrive here.
Exactly, and yet it's no less special. But in fact, what makes it special is the fact that it's not overrun by tourists. And that's really what we like to do on some of our trips.
It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you for that overview of Cortona. I'm going to talk now a little bit about some of the details of the trip. Of course, all of the information is available in our brochure. If you didn't get it out of last week's newsletter, it will be sent out to you together with a replay of this webinar. So let me just touch on a few of these points. I'm sure there'll be questions afterwards. So Francesco will be on standby to answer any questions that you have about the program.
Yep.
So as I say, this trip is a month long, but you can theoretically take either part 1, Florence, or part 2, Cortona. So let's say you've already been to Italy before, and you've already traveled around Tuscany, or maybe you rented a villa there at some point. You could literally come just for the Florence part, or vice versa. You could come and just enjoy the Cortona part. So we make arrangements for both. The pricing that we show here, as usual, is per person. I'm not going to go through all the details. You can find it in the brochure. But these are the prices that are including our pretty much all the transportation that you need. So we provide private transfers. So we pick you up at the airport in Florence and bring you right down to the hotel. You've got 14 nights accommodation, both in Florence and in Cortona, breakfast every day. The activity credit, that's an important one. So for Florence, it's $750. So if you look at the price of the trip, it's almost 20% of the whole trip is allocated to the activity credit that you can spend on whatever it is that you want. And if you don't, for some reason, spend the $750, I can't imagine that you wouldn't, we will give it back to you. So the whole idea behind it is that it's there for you to choose what you want to do. In the case of Cortona, the activity credit is actually $1,500. Now, why is the difference? Well, because in Cortona, we have to drive everywhere. So transportation is the biggest expense of running this trip, as it is in a lot of places. And so we have developed the pricing in a way that gives you $1,500 worth of activities that you can do. So all of the trips that we've mentioned and other ones. And so out of all of the different ones that are available, roughly 3/4 of them are covered by that activity credit. So if you really want to go and be busy every single day, we can find something for you to do. Or as I say, you can take it a little bit more easy, relax, enjoy Cortona, or enjoy some hiking. Another important thing I want to mention is that we provide you with a SIM card, which is very handy because it means that you're able to make phone calls not only in Italy but actually internationally, and more importantly, the data is very helpful for us because it means that we can communicate as a group, particularly on a trip like this. It makes a big difference. So again, the details of all of this are in the brochure. And just talking about exclusions for a second, of course, the airfare is always separate. We will provide a quotation for you on that, depending where you're coming from in Canada. But pretty much everything else. So we include on average 2 meals a day. So breakfast, and then on our trips, we normally have a lunch included as well. The days that are completely free, obviously it's just breakfast. And dinner, we have some dinners included in these excursions, but we often leave dinner at your own choice, at your own choosing, so that you can go out and eat a wonderful, simple meal like pizza or pasta in Italy for probably 10, 12 euros, or you can go to some of the finest restaurants that you've ever had before. So that's again the beauty of this program, is that it enables you to really experience dining in Italy the way that the locals do. So for airfare, of course, we'll be ready to quote airfares once airlines start resuming their full schedule. So at this point, we're aiming for the fall. So far, it's looking like we should be able to offer airfare into Florence and out of Rome, or vice versa, in and around the $1,000 to $1,400 range. But of course, that depends on what happens as we emerge out of this pandemic. So I'm about to answer some of the questions that have come in, and I see a few of them here already. So Paula and Joel, if any other questions come in that I don't see, please let me know. Of course, you're always welcome to drop us an email, give us a call. If you don't know, the phone numbers are already, they're listed on our screen as well as on our website. But let's take a few minutes and talk about some of the questions. And I see a question here that was posted a little bit earlier from Paul. And it's a good question, one I expected, about COVID-19. What's happened in Italy? It certainly was the hotbed, as was noted here at the beginning of the pandemic. The situation has improved greatly. Let's see, did we lose Francesco? I think we might have lost Francesco. So we were talking about this just the other day. Like much of Europe, great strides have been made. They have the situation well under control. The epicenter of COVID in Italy actually was more in the northern part of Italy, around near the city of Milan, most importantly. Between Milan and Venice is where they had the worst outbreak of it. Of course, it was everywhere, much like it was at home in Canada, but the situation is looking much, much better. Vaccination rates are improving, caseloads are way down. So we are very hopeful that the situation will be well under control long before we arrive in the spring of next year. The dates for, Vaughn, you asked a question about the dates for Tuscany. I think you may mean either Florence or Cortona. So if you didn't get the brochure yet already, we'll make sure that we get a copy of it. And the question here is the cost for the whole month. So basically, how we've done it with the pricing is that it's priced in 2 segments, either Florence or Cortona. And if you book both of them, we knock $250 off the combined price for both, if you do both part 1 and 2, Florence and Cortona. Let's see, a couple of other questions in here. Fran said, does a dog come with the accommodations? It's actually a good point, because these villas are often private homes, and in some cases the owners actually live somewhere on the premises. Now, of course, they wouldn't be in any of the areas that you would occupy, but the nice thing is that it can be like living with an Italian family, and you've got, you know, the Italian grandmother there, and that makes it a very, very experience. Another question came from Jean about the second trip in the fall. We haven't released the dates for the second trip to Tuscany. It will be pretty much the month of October, maybe a day or two before, or maybe stretching into November. We will be finalizing those by the end of August. And as soon as we have those, we'll certainly let you know. Ardell asked a question, is there a minimum number of people who need to register before it can happen? So yeah, there is a minimum number. For these trips, it's around 12 people. I suspect that we will have far, far, far more than that. And in terms of a maximum number, the way we operate our liveaways is that we can actually do it as overall as a larger group, because everything that we do, all of the trips that we do, are typically in groups of 8 to about 12, maybe 14 people at the most. So you always have the small group experience where you're out on excursions. And so even if we ended up we can take a maximum of about 30 people on this trip, staying in 3 different residences, all in close proximity in Florence. And similarly in Cortona, the villas are spaced a little bit further apart, but we will have a shuttle bus that at certain times will go around to the different villas and bring you into town, as well as to any place nearby. So we're looking after the accommodation for you, we're looking after the transportation for you, so that you don't feel like you're completely isolated. And as I say, there's excursions offered almost every day of the trip, from both Florence and Cortona, but at the same time, you have the ability to not have to do all of them. Okay, good. I don't see any other questions, but I'm sure you probably have lots more. So please do drop us an email. Sorry, there are a couple more questions. Yes, excuse me, I didn't see those. Single double. So the price for single and double occupancy. So double occupancy means the price per person with 2 people sharing a room, with the exception of our 2-bedroom apartments in Florence. So we have the option for, we have one of our residents that has 2-bedroom apartments. So in that case, you'd have 2 people in each bedroom, which obviously each one has a private bathroom, but you could also book a 2-bedroom with 1 person in each. So double occupancy means 2 people in a bedroom. Single occupancy means 1 person in a bedroom. And so Terry asks, the Cyprus trips ends April 5th. How does this tie in with Tuscany, Terry? Well, they're actually back to back. And I will be going from Cyprus to Tuscany and picking up this trip in Tuscany. And so anybody else that's interested, who's maybe already booked to go to Cyprus, you can go back to back and go right from Cyprus to Tuscany. We would fly from Limassol to Rome in that case, but we can give you certainly some more details on that. Another question Mike asked about, is there a chance to do a Rome trip? Absolutely. If you haven't been to Rome before, it's a good opportunity, either at the beginning of the trip, if you're flying in, to spend a few days in Rome, or at the end. After Cortona, we will most likely be, most people will depart from Rome, so you can easily add on a few days. And we can certainly give you some hotel recommendations. Rome is a great city to check out on your own, you can easily find a guide and simply wander around on your own. And then another question is, said they're in Croatia until the 23rd. Yeah, so we can pretty much accommodate you. If you're in Europe already around this time and want to join in for this tour, we do our best to accommodate you. You don't necessarily, if you're going to be a day late, we'll make something work for you. So just drop us a note, give Paula a call, and she would be more than happy to facilitate that. And of course, I'm also available. Good. Well, thank you so much for your attention today. I hope you enjoyed our webinar with Francesco. I'm sorry that he seems to have dropped off. It's a great trip. Tuscany is, as I say, is super popular among our members. I hope that you'll join us. I look forward to catching up with you next week. Is our webinar on Canal du Midi. So another different type of a program. And this is actually going to be part of our France Kaleidoscope program, which is sort of like a liveaway. We're going to be spending the month of October also in October. So at the same time as Tuscany in the fall of 2022, we're going to be doing a France Kaleidoscope. And one of those weeks is on the Canal du Midi, a wonderful waterway that connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean. And we're going to be spending a week aboard a houseboat, visiting some beautiful French villages. So find out about that next week on Thursday, July the 15th at 11 o'clock. Paula has put the link for the webinar in the chat, and it's also going to be, of course, on our newsletter this coming Saturday. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us. Travel will resume soon. I look forward to seeing you before too long.